The emerald glow of Atlantis's protective shield was fractured, not by a natural disaster, but by something far more insidious. Reports flooded the royal chamber, each more grim than the last. Surface dwellers, heavily armed and seemingly without conscience, were tearing through the outer defenses, their crude, explosive devices scarring the ancient coral architecture. King Orm, Aquaman's estranged brother, was already captured, his forces overwhelmed by the sheer brutal efficiency of the invaders. This was no ordinary invasion. This was a surgical strike of chaos, a deliberate unraveling of Atlantean society from within. Arthur Curry, King of Atlantis, watched the holographic projections of the unfolding devastation, his heart a cold stone in his chest. His royal guard, formidable though they were falling. The enemy moved with a ruthless precision, a chilling disregard for life. Their objective unclear, but their impact undeniable. They were called the Suicide Squad, a name that now resonated with an ominous truth within the hollowed halls of his kingdom. Traditional Atlantean warfare, built on honor and strategic might, was proving ineffective against this unpredictable, unyielding force. Diplomacy was futile, restraint a weakness. This was a different kind of war, demanding a different kind of warrior. And in that moment of stark realization, a desperate, almost radical idea began to take root in Aquaman's mind. A strategy so audacious, so contrary to his own moral compass, that it made his gills sting. He had to fight fire with fire. He had to embrace the very methods he usually condemned. He needed a team willing to get their hands dirty, a team unbound by conventional Atlantean codes of conduct, a team that understood desperation and whose loyalties, if they could be swayed, would be fiercely held. He needed Atlantis's own Suicide Squad. The whispers began in the deepest, most shadowed corners of Atlantean prisons, reaching cells long forgotten and inmates long forsaken. The king, it was said, was offering pardons, not for petty theft, not for minor infractions, but for a willingness to unleash chaos on behalf of the throne. Arthur descended into those depths himself, his trident a beacon in the gloom, its light reflecting off the hardened faces of those he had personally incarcerated. He walked past mer-thieves, rogue sorcerers, and mutated outcasts until he reached the formidable, reinforced cell of Nanaue, King Shark. The immense bipedal shark man merely grunted as Aquaman approached, his eyes dark and ancient, assessing the king with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. A king making house calls to a cage? King Shark rumbled, his voice like grinding tectonic plates. What, need a new pet for your palace? Arthur met his gaze, unflinching. I need defenders, Nanai. I need those willing to do what others won't. Atlantis is under attack, not by rival kingdoms, but by surface dwellers who fight with a savagery that mirrors your own. King Shark let out a low, guttural laugh, echoed by the members of his loosely affiliated gang, themselves a collection of hardened Atlantean criminals, disgraced warriors, cynical smugglers, and opportunistic mercenaries. And what's in it for us? One of them sneered. Freedom? Gold? The chance to bite something the king usually protects? Pardons, Aquaman stated, his voice resonating with authority, yet laced with a subtle plea. Full pardons for all of you, for your past crimes, and the chance to defend the very kingdom you've often defied. A chance to be more than just outcasts, a chance to save what is ours, even if you never truly belonged to it. He paused, letting the weight of his offer sink in. This was not a plea for loyalty, but a calculated gamble on self-preservation and the raw instinct that bound these individuals. You understand desperation, do you not? You understand what it means to be pushed to the brink. So do I now. And at the brink, one makes choices previously unthinkable. A flicker of something akin to respect, or perhaps just cold amusement, crossed King Shark's face. The king was willing to get his hands dirty. He was willing to acknowledge the utility of those society had cast aside. This wasn't a hero asking for help. This was a king, desperate and pragmatic, making a deal. The terms were brutal, the mission clear. Neutralize the Suicide Squad. No prisoners, no holding back. King Shark and his gang, fueled by the promise of freedom and the primal urge for battle, became Aquaman's unconventional arm of defense. The ensuing confrontation was not clean, nor was it heroic in the traditional sense. It was a maelstrom of raw power and unbridled aggression. Atlantean criminals, long confined, unleashed their pent-up fury and brutal ingenuity against Waller's motley crew. King Shark, a living battering ram, tore through enemy lines, his roar echoing through the shattered coral. His gang, accustomed to skirmishes in the dark depths, exploited every shadow, every weakness. Aquaman himself led the charge, not from the front lines in a blaze of glory, but strategically, directing his rogue team, using their unique talents to counter the invaders' specific threats. He witnessed acts of shocking violence from his own heroes, yet he did not flinch. He understood that these were the necessary evils, the grim compromises required when the survival of his kingdom hung in the balance. In the end, Atlantis was saved. The Suicide Squad, battered and broken, retreated, leaving behind a trail of destruction, but also a profound shift in the Atlantean psyche, and certainly in its king. The aftermath was quiet, but the echoes of the conflict resonated deeply. Arthur looked upon his kingdom, scarred but still standing, and reflected on the choices he had made. He had walked into the shadows, embraced the methods of his enemies, and formed an alliance with the very elements he once fought against. It was a victory, undeniably, but one tinged with the bitter taste of moral compromise. He had lowered himself to the level of his adversaries, not out of malice, but out of absolute necessity. This story of Aquaman's Suicide Squad is a powerful reminder that leadership often demands choices far removed from the idealized heroicism we might imagine. It's about facing uncomfortable truths, making pragmatic decisions, and sometimes fighting fire with fire, even if it means singeing your own hands in the process. What are your thoughts on Aquaman's desperate gamble? How far would you go to protect what you love? Share your perspectives in the comments below. And if you found this exploration thought-provoking, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more journeys into the complex, compelling worlds of our heroes and villains.